Ralph Lauren Polo 67 Eau de Parfum Extreme. Is it worth it, and is it redundant if you already have any of the other two? What does it smell like? What's the performance like? And is it a compliment getter like the other two? That and a lot more in this review. So I highly recommend to check out my reviews of the other two, and I do recommend to subscribe and like this video so that you don't miss out on my upcoming comparison of them all. The design of the bottle is pretty much identical to the other two except with a different color scheme. I mean, to me what really matters is the juice inside, but I gotta say that I kinda like this design. So I can't remember exactly how much I paid for this, but I think it was somewhere around 80 bucks or something like that. And that makes it the most expensive, at least for what I paid for these out of the three. So I'm gonna list all the notes below, and the opening definitely feels familiar, at least if you already put your nose to any of the other two. I mean, you get a gorgeous dose of intense and smooth aromatic freshness together with quite a prominent and intense dose of citrus. So if you watch any of my reviews of the other two, then you probably know that I absolutely love and think that the aromatic freshness in those two are insanely intoxicating and incredibly sexy. The aromatic freshness in the Extreme is also really nice, but I kind of miss the lavender from the Eau de Toilette. And in less than a minute after you spray it on, you're gonna get what is one of the main stars of this whole line, which is that juicy pineapple. But there's definitely, at least to my nose, a bit of a twist when it comes to the pineapple, and in the Extreme, at least to my nose, that pineapple comes across as a lot more sweet, richer, slightly warmer, and definitely with a bit more depth to it. So the opening is gorgeously aromatic fresh together with what I feel is quite an intense but smooth dose of citrusy freshness, and you also get that sweet pineapple. The more Polo 67 Eau de Parfum Extreme moves away from the opening and into the heart of it, the fuller, richer, and definitely sweeter the whole thing gets. Both the aromatic freshness and citrusy freshness feels rounder, smoother, and even more prominent. That caramelized pineapple just feels more sweet, more prominent, and even richer and more juicier. But the main difference at the heart of it is that in comes quite a prominent dose of smooth woodiness. And this is where I actually feel Polo 67 Eau de Parfum Extreme shines the most, because all those different parts are at their most intense, roundest, fullest, and smoothest, and come together in a fantastic way. I still, however, wish they would have put in the lavender from the EDT. So there are basically two stages to the dry down. The first one is where I'm basically getting mostly a mix of smooth woodiness, quite a rich dose of smooth woodiness, together with quite an intense and quite a sweet dose of pineapple. And right behind that rich and smooth dose of woodiness and that sweet pineapple, you have what I feel is a very smooth, almost sort of a suede-like kind of leather. And while I do think this second part of the dry down smells good, I mean, I'm a leather freak, I absolutely love the scent of leather. I also have a lot of fragrances with a smooth dose of leather, but I do feel that Polo 67 Eau de Parfum Extreme loses some of its magic in that second part of the dry down. And again, at least to my nose, the best part of Polo 67 Eau de Parfum Extreme is basically at the heart of it and a bit into the dry down. And I think the sort of a biggest twist to the Extreme is really that smooth dose of leather and how they made that pineapple more intense and more sweet. So I'm gonna do a full comparison and rank of the entire line, but let's do a quick comparison right here. The original Polo 67 Eau de Toilette is also a mix of aromatic freshness with quite a prominent dose of smooth, citrusy freshness. It also has a fantastic dose of sweet pineapple, and the whole thing is smoothly woody. So there are definitely some similarities if you compare it to the Extreme. However, to my nose, the biggest differences is that this has that smooth dose of leather and that the pineapple in the Extreme is a lot more sweet. And the Eau de Toilette, at least to my nose, is a more fresher and in a way a more versatile alternative to this. And what makes me obsess about the EDT is its intensely rich and quite nuanced dose and intoxicating dose of aromatic freshness. The Eau de Parfum sort of simplified definitely builds upon the EDT, but I do feel it's a bit richer, a bit more intense, with a bit more depth to it if you compare it to the EDT. And I also feel the Eau de Parfum is slightly less fresh compared to the EDT. And much like with the EDT, the main difference between the Eau de Parfum and the Extreme is basically that the Extreme has that smooth dose of leather together with an even more intensely sweet and sort of a juicy kind of pineapple. So let's talk about the vibe here, and I do feel that since the Extreme retains quite a bit of the same scent DNA of the original, it also retains quite a bit of that sexy vibe. And even though the Extreme goes in a more loudly sweet direction with that juicy, sweet, intense pineapple, the smooth leather that it has actually, at least to my nose, gives it in the dry down a more mature kind of feel. And not only a more mature, but also a more classy and elegant kind of vibe. And when it comes to the vibe, I do feel, if you look at all these three, that the Extreme is the most sort of a classy and elegant one. So how does the scent and vibe translate into occasions and seasons? I do feel when it comes to occasions that this is another one in the line that's pretty much perfect for date nights and going out. If you're wearing a suit or if you're dressed to the nines, and if you're choosing between these three, it's pretty much this one. But I mean, you could of course wear a Polo 67 and the Eau de Parfum Extreme to work or school as well. When it comes to seasons, this isn't as intensely fresh as the original. I also feel it's slightly less fresh if you compare it to the Eau de Parfum, and it definitely has more depth to it thanks to that intense, juicy, sweet pineapple and the leather. And basically the feel of that makes this a better choice for spring, fall and winter. So is Polo 67 Eau de Parfum Extreme another compliment getter in the line? This basically retains quite a bit of that original super sexy compliment getting DNA of the OG, but with an even more intense dose of sweet pineapple and smooth leather. That pineapple is very likable, and I do feel that even though this has leather in it, the leather is definitely of the more smooth and mass appealing kind. So yeah, this is definitely another compliment getting scent in the line. However, I do not feel it's as compliment getting as the EDT or the Eau de Parfum. So let's talk about performance, and I do feel that probably the Extreme is the most long lasting in the line. That smooth leather in the dry down actually lasts quite a while, at least on my skin. I know some people get intense projection from the Extreme, but I do feel that if you compare it to the other two, it's almost on the same level, perhaps slightly stronger. But when it comes to projection, I do not feel it's a massive difference between all three. And while the performance is approved, I do not feel Polo 67 Eau de Parfum Extreme is a beast mode kind of fragrance. So let's quickly talk about some of the alternatives, and obviously both the OG EDT and the Eau de Parfum are solid alternatives. Please go back to the portion of this video where I compared this with the EDT and Eau de Parfum. But I do have two other alternatives, and the first one is Carolina Herrera Bad Boy Elixir. I mean, these two are definitely not the same, but the main reason why I chose Bad Boy Elixir is because this is also mostly about a fantastic and super smooth dose of leather. That smooth leather is combined with a gorgeous dose of aromatic freshness from lavender and sage, and the whole thing is much like this one, smoothly woody. Again, not the same, but if you absolutely love leather of the super smooth kind, then this is definitely a top tier choice for that. And the reason why I chose the next one as an alternative to Polo 67 Eau de Parfum Extreme is that it's also a mix of smooth leather with a bit of fruitiness and a really nice dose of aromatic freshness from lavender and sage. But there's a big difference between these two, and the fruitiness and sweetness that's coming from Azzaro Forever One at Elixir is that of raspberry. And one way to sort of view Forever One at Elixir is that this is almost like a mix of Bad Boy Elixir that I just shown you and the epic and iconic Tom Ford Tuscan leather. So what are my final thoughts on Polo 67 Eau de Parfum Extreme and how am I going to rate this thing from 1 to 10? So what the Extreme basically is, at least to my nose, is a version of a 67 with a bit less freshness to it, but what it amps up instead is the pineapple. This, at least to my nose, has the most intense, rich and definitely most intensely sweet pineapple out of the three. And what it also does is to introduce quite a prominent but also quite smooth dose of leather to the whole thing. I do feel the Extreme retains quite a bit of that main sort of a core scent DNA. I do love that core scent DNA of the Polo 67s, so I do feel that the core of this is really good. But remember when I talked about the second part of the dry down, basically where the whole thing turns into something that is mostly about smooth leather, that's where I feel that Polo 67 Eau de Parfum Extreme loses some of its magic. And that's me saying that even though I'm a leather freak. So when this starts to go into the far dry down and I'm mostly getting that soft leather, even though I really enjoy soft leather, that's where I start to enjoy it a bit less and feel the need to top it up again. And I'm gonna give Ralph Lauren Polo 67 Eau de Parfum Extreme something around 8.5. So let me know how you feel about Polo 67 Eau de Parfum Extreme. Do you think it's an absolute banger, or do you feel it's mid, or do you dislike it? Let me know in the comments. Please drop a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my other reviews of the other Polo 67s over there.